Life is messy and unpredictable.
Being able to find joy in the weeds of life is so important. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kim, and we are so glad you've joined us as we figure out how to hold joy in one hand and struggle in the other.
Welcome to Joy in the Weeds.
I give
Okay.
up.
Here we are.
Okay, so that was just there's no, the only reason I'm laughing is because it's funny, but we've had nothing but weeds this morning for about 30 minutes.
And it's all been technical
And
things.
it's all
We
been
can't seem to get anything to work.
Oh my word. My computer, because it's still on vacation, did not want to turn on. And then my microphone wasn't working.
No, your microphone was working. It was that I had a new computer.
You see, we
And
both had
it wasn't
computer issues.
unbelievable. And then I forget to hit record. And then anyway, I just am so thankful that I figured that out before we did an hour of recording. So
That would have been really terrible.
but
Because
we're
we would have
here.
yes, we are here and we're trying to have a fresh conversation. And the last thing we want to do is have a conversation and then have to have it again.
Again. So we just got back from
word.
vacation, both of us. We haven't seen each other in a very long time, and we refuse
Very
to
long
talk
time.
before we hit record.
Yes, because normally we do. Normally we chat for about 30 minutes or so
Yeah,
to just
kinda
kind of
catch
catch up and be friends and whatever. And now we
Right.
did not want to do that this time.
No, because we want you to get in
The
on this conversation.
yes, because it's going to be totally whatever happens. Who knows what's going to
Kim,
happen?
the only problem that I have with today's conversation
Yes.
is that you said that you would really like for us to talk about our vacations.
Yes.
And your vacation and my vacation. And the only issue that I have with that is I think my vacation may need to be an entire series. So
Oh. Tell me more.
well, I will, but we'll get there. But I mean, it is like so much. There's
Really?
crazy life-changing experience for me. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I know. And
Okay,
I
now
have
you've got
been
me so intrigued.
Kim, I have been like so badly wanting to text you all along the way, like when I would have these, amazing things happen, or challenging things, right? Things that are
Yeah.
making me think like I've
Right,
never
right, right.
thought before. And
Yes.
I've I just wanted to text Kim and I can't text Kim because
No.
I wanted to have this conversation.
Right.
I wanted it to be genuine and kind of
Oh, wow.
fresh and real, just the two of us talking. So here we go.
Okay.
And I know yours was amazing too. So
Mine was well, there were a lot of I learned a lot of things.
mm.
Um, and they're so connected to other people's stories that I'm not sure I don't know.
You can't share a lot.
Yeah. So I have to be I want to be respectful and to the people that I was with, my husband being one, and then his sister and his parents that I'm gonna, I mean, I don't mind sharing some, but I need to be cautious so
Yeah,
as
we
not to
always
tell their
have to be
stories.
here. I mean, it's we can't share other people's stories, so
No, no.
yeah.
But man, there is where Tim and I went was Grand Manan, New Brunswick, and Tim's parents have a cottage there. We go there. We've gone there every year for the last 4 years because we just need to, because it is the best place on the face of the earth. There's no place. I mean, I love to travel. I loved going to Paris. I loved when we were in France and my mom and I were just going everywhere. I loved Israel. I've been to Italy. I love traveling, and there is no better place in the entire world than Grand Manan, New Brunswick. I would. Mhm. It is the most peaceful, unstressed. It is the place where I probably am most myself.
Mm.
Where I am so connected to myself, to God, and to Tim. It is amazing.
That's really awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. And we did a lot of reading and we did a lot of hiking and I did some writing, and I did some biblical exploration, which I'm hoping to be
Wow.
writing a series on the 4 women in Jesus's genealogy. And um, just every morning you read the same passage. Like, I'm reading a chapter 38 of Genesis over and over and over again. And I have more questions than I have answers, but I'm just, every morning there's something brand new in it. Something brand new. It
Yeah.
was really, really incredible and very peaceful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you spent time I know you've been wanting to write this. So the fact that you've been able to spend time exploring, like exploring that, it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And there's so many similarities to the 4 women
Mm.
that are just like, oh, I wonder why
Okay,
that.
I know you're gonna write something, but I feel like we need a preview here on the podcast. We need a whole
Okay,
yeah.
well, one of the
You
similarities is
don't have to do it right now, but
they're all
I'm saying.
foreign. They're all
Oh.
foreigners,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
even Bathsheba
Mm.
is Uriah the Hittite. Well, chances are
Mm.
very high that she was also a Hittite. So all 4 women are foreigners. Anyway, yeah. Let's talk about your vacation. You went to
Well, I went to the island of Hawaii, and
Yes.
which every time I say that, people, since I've been back, people always say, "Oh, it is so beautiful." It is beautiful,
Mhm.
no question, but it was so much bigger than that because
Mhm.
we went for my family's reunion, and not just I had someone um wonder how on earth could we all get that must have been terribly expensive for everyone. It
Mhm.
is very expensive to go there, but the reason we had our family reunion is there is because that's where I'm from. My grandfather was Native Hawaiian,
Wow.
and my this family reunion was the descendants of my great great grandmother and
Good
all of
God.
her descendants. So she had 10 children, 7 of which had children. And so
Wow.
it's the 7 lines from my great great grandmother. Um, and
So
there
your
were
grandfather is one of those children?
no, his mother was one of those children,
Oh,
one of
great
those
great
7.
grandmother.
Yeah,
Holy,
great great grandmother.
wow, that goes
So
far back.
yeah. So there's and each of those 7 children, they assigned a
Mhm.
color, so for each line,
Oh, that's
right?
cool. That's
And
cool.
we were yellow. I thought of you a lot
Oh,
because we were the yellow line.
yay.
Um, and of the yellow line, there were 14 of us, all of which I know because they're
Oh,
my uncle and my
cool.
cousins and their children, et cetera, et cetera, but people I don't often get to see. So that was really nice. My brother was there. My parents ended up going. So we had it was wonderful, but total there were like 139 people at this
Wow.
reunion.
Now this is your mother's side of the family, correct?
My mother's side of the family, my
Yeah.
mother's father.
Okay.
Um, and anyway, I will be honest, I have green eyes and pasty white skin. And I mean, when I am super, super, super tanned, for me, I have traditionally growing up, I'm not burning much, but I don't
Mhm,
really tan much either.
mhm,
And
mhm.
when I'm really, really, really dark, like the tan lines are significant. I just
Mhm.
look like a normal human being. I don't look tanned because I'm so white to start with, right? So
Yeah.
and so I have a
Hilarious.
brother who looks like he is Native Hawaiian. I have 2 brothers who look
Wow.
Native Hawaiian fully. They just, are blend right in. Um, but because I have not felt like I looked like it, and it's kind of distant, right? And I didn't know
Mhm.
anyone, and I've never been to the islands.
Mm,
I've almost felt like a poser, sort of like
mm.
I'm yeah, like, I have a drip way back. Does that make
Mhm,
sense?
mhm, mhm, mhm.
And but other than like, for my daughter's wedding, I wore a lei instead of a corsage. So we would do little things like that. But other than that, never really felt a part, or as they would say, never felt Kanaka,
Okay.
um, which
Is that a sense of
native,
belonging? Because I know
native,
that
it's just saying you're native, like you're a
okay,
native Hawaiian, like from
okay,
the land, originally from the land. Um, Not just someone who was born and raised in Hawaii or on one of the Hawaiian Islands, but someone who has native Hawaiian blood in them,
okay,
because that's very different.
right.
Anyway, this experience completely changed that. In fact, at one point I told Chris I'd had this amazing experience, and Chris tells me, I get back to the hotel room and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay." But I said, "Babe, I left this pasty German woman the hotel room this
Mhm.
morning, and now I am a brown Hawaiian girl."
Yeah,
I said,
so
I
to
know I
tell
don't."
are you is it okay to say, like, are you okay with saying what that experience was?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but we were invited to come on, to for the family to join us. We really didn't know what was going on, and we went into a room, and they were gonna kinda tell us what we were gonna be doing for the day or the morning, and we get there, and, we were actually, like, a little late. We were actually early, but they'd already started, and I have since found out that Hawaiians are very, fluid on their time. Like,
Mm,
they're
mhm,
not, like, chronically late. They
mhm.
just kinda, well, this was my experience there. I shouldn't generalize it for all of Native Hawaiians, but they're just very, happy to get started when they feel like it's people are there
Time,
and they're ready to
yeah.
get going, they get going.
I
And
think
if
that's
that's
a
early,
very not Western, Eastern way of being. Because 'cause I've heard other like, Indonesians are very similar. They just start when it's time to start, whatever that feels like.
yeah, and
Yeah,
not necessar but it's not like, um, like, you I know in the Hispanic community, like, as long as if it's 10 o'clock, if it's 10:59, you're still on time.
right,
And
right.
it's not necessarily that way, it's
Mhm,
just, when you feel like it's time to
mhm.
start. Anyway, so we were 10 minutes early and late,
Okay.
and, but we come in and we sit down, and the woman who was speaking, which is one of my relatives,
Mhm.
from one of the other lines, she said, "I think I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna kinda back up for those of you that are here in the room, because I want everyone to understand what's going on." And she proceeded to talk about a piece of land that is there on the Big Island of Hawaii that is in Kona, or near Kona, right near where we were, and that it is, um a piece of land that has ancestral burial grounds on it, and they buried people in, lava tubes under the ground that are kind of already there, and so that was the way of
That
burying
sounds
people.
horrifying.
Well,
I know
it's
they're
kind of,
dead, but oh my word.
but think about it from the standpoint that it's like a stone tomb
Sure.
that's
Right,
already created, right, for
right.
you. So anyway, and though there are those lava tubes under this ground, that go back to our ancestors. And then they said, that on this property was also what they call, and I can't say the right name, like, I've not been able to get the pronunciation down, so I'm not going to embarrass myself in that way yet. I'm going to get there, though. I'm learning. But um but a menstruating house was on this property, and it is the only known still existing actual menstruating house, and it belonged to our family. And so they have been, this my family member has been, one of the women there has really been fighting with the government and whatever to make sure that this land is,
Mm.
protected, because of this. So
So tell us what that means because many of us are like, okay,
it's
we're
so
telling ourselves stories, but we're not really sure what that means. What's a
okay. It's
menstruating house?
first of all, it's the best. um Instantly I thought, "Oh, biblical, right? Like,
Right.
women are unclean and set aside
Mhm.
during that time."
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
um, I want to tell you the story in the order of which it happened, in which
Okay.
I learned it, because it's
Okay. Go ahead.
significant.
Go ahead.
However, while we're here in this room, this lovely woman is speaking about this, and she would like say the way that she would talk is English, right? Until
Mhm.
it's an important word, and then it's always in Hawaiian. And
Mhm.
I know part of that is because the Hawaiian words say, similar to biblical, anytime you have a different language, right? It
Mhm.
says so much more than the English
Mhm.
translation.
Mhm.
And so all of these words, so she would say something, and then there's a Hawaiian word, and I don't know what the Hawaiian word is, and I wasn't going to stop her in this room full of people, right? Every single time I didn't understand a word. And so
Right.
I just kept trying to kind of understand the gist of what she was saying. That was the
Mhm.
best
Mhm.
I could come up with.
Mhm.
And anyway, but she's talking about the struggle they've been through with the government, how they've just recently been able to come to some kind of an agreement, and what that fight has been like and why it is so important. And anyway, and so she's talking about all this, and one of the men then stops her and says, "Excuse me, but we just need to stop here for a moment." And he said, "I need everyone in this room to understand that our family comes from a long line of incredibly powerful and amazing women."
Hmm.
And the whole room kind of chuckles. And he says, "Yeah, and you all are chuckling because you know it's true, and it's still true today." And he said that right here in this room, we are in the presence of all of these women who are really remarkable women. And I'm grossly paraphrasing what but that was like the
Mhm.
gist of it.
Mhm.
And I have to say, like, I was I I this is on the tails of just kind of hearing about this struggle, and how Cheryl had been able to, get the things done that she'd been able to get done. And then hearing that, I got emotional, like, and
Of
I'm
course.
kind of choking back the tears, and thinking about being one of those women. And,
Mhm.
I don't know how much we've talked about it here on the podcast. I can't remember what you and I talk about and what we talk about here on the podcast. But anyway, but I certainly have struggled with being, having in my lifetime, being a very strong, and often accused of being stubborn, or,
Mhm.
too
Mhm.
much. Do you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Um, and, to hear, not just that, I guess, to be put into this group of women who are just really remarkable women,
Mhm.
and and in that way, was really an emotional thing for me. So we get done, and we head on to she finishes talking, and then what we find out is we're actually going to that property, and
I would hope so.
we're gonna get to walk on this property. And what they had planned
Yes.
for us to do was to try to clean it up. But when they went, they realized that the cleanup really needs, like there's some huge trees that need to be taken out, because their roots are messing with the walls and the different parts of what's on this land. And on this land is a healing pond. There's a bunch of walls that have fallen down. There's walls and sort of foundation parts to this menstruating house. And mind you, at this point, I don't even really know what that all means.
Right.
And so we head out there to see this, and our family, we gather. They didn't want us to go on the land until we had all come together. And then they did a chant or a song, before one of the young men, before we went on to the property, and basically acknowledging that we're going on to this, what is a burial site, what is our,
Right.
this, anyway, sacred ground.
Yeah. And sacred really in a lot of ways just means set apart.
Yes,
It's
yes,
something that's
yes,
important and it's set apart.
exactly.
Mhm.
And that we're going to be honoring of that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Um, so we go onto the property. We're all walking around. I'm in my flip flops, because that's all you wear when you're in Hawaii. I mean, the
Of
whole
course.
entire time. I never wear anything but my flip flops, because
Of course.
it's my bliss to be in flip flops.
Oh, how fun.
And we head out there, and there's lots, like, right away you see the walls that are part, like, just on the property, not necessarily
Mhm.
from the house, but just on the property. And they've crumbled and mostly fallen down, and so you're stepping on all these lava rocks that were once part of the wall, and so because of that, it's very unstable. And then pretty quickly we get into what is just an overgrown jungle at this point, right near the edge of the water on the yeah, right there at the ocean. And so we walk into that, and so the ground is unstable and the rocks are unstable, and you're just kind of climbing around, and there's almost just a hush as we go in there,
Mhm.
and everyone's just
Mhm.
looking around. And then a lot of us go out actually onto the rocks that are right out there on the coast. And this land is also one of the reasons they were able to get this set aside is by the government, is that King Kamehameha also used that was where he first started surfing or liked to surf the most. And so he set up grandstands so people could actually watch him surf on one corner of this property. And so that's an interesting thing. It's also where they first
Yeah.
started the very first surfing competitions, et cetera. And so
Wow.
so they want to, that's significant and another reason to not let it just become condos. So anyway, we're out there and we're walking around. It's really lovely. There are no snakes in Hawaii.
Yay!
Just let that soak in for a moment. None. None. So you're in this, tropical kind of jungle-ish-esque looking place,
Right,
and you don't ever have to think or wonder, like, what creepy crawly's coming out from
right.
underneath the next rock. And so I can't tell you what that did for me. I mean, I was so much more at peace than I ever am even
Sure.
hiking in the woods of North Carolina.
Right.
And so it was just really a beautiful thing. Then I mentioned we're getting ready to leave the property, and I'm walking past the gentleman who had said, that we have strong women in our family. And I said to him, I said, "I just want to let you know what you said this morning was really powerful for me, and being here has just really been remarkable, and just what an experience, and I just wanted to thank you." And he said, "I really think you need to tell Cheryl."
Hmm.
And I had not spoken with her yet. And there's a lot of people, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, I and Cheryl was kind of off to the side. And so I turned and he said, "Cheryl, you need to hear what Beth has to say." And it was one of those times, Kim, when you just look into the face of someone who's so kind and loving, and you know what I'm saying? And I just looked
Mhm.
at her and I choked up and I said, "I just don't know if I
Mhm.
can do it without crying."
Mhm.
And she said, "That's okay." She said, "My name is," and she said her Hawaiian name, and she said, "And it means crier."
Oh,
And
wow.
she said uh, she said, "But crying is just part of showing your strength." And then ah, and then
I need to
she
meet this woman.
and then she yeah, and then she starts telling me more about the Hawaiian culture and their
Mhm.
beliefs, and that w part of this whole thing with this menstruating house and was that women are that when you are, um, menstruating and you are emotional, you are more raw and you're more open, but that they believe is a sign of strength and growth and not of weakness. And
Wow.
so it is to be celebrated and it's to be set apart, and that
Mm,
women need this time to really grow. That's how I'm going to, say it.
mhm.
To anyone out there listening, if you happen to know all about Hawaiian culture, I am sure I'm getting a lot of it wrong. This is just, I mean, I am such a babe learning, but this was my very beginning of
Mm.
learning. And I know I
Mhm.
have a long way to go. And if you are out there and you really want to correct me, please contact me because I want to know. Like I'm obsessed. Anyway, you'll know more about that in a minute. But in any event, and so she's sharing this with me, and then she says to me, and I'm just like, I can't keep it together, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm just
Mhm.
overcome.
Mhm.
And she says, you and because she was talking about how this was part of the point of the house, and it was giving them an opportunity to kind of sit in that, right, and to be in that moment and to grow and to learn and to, anyway.
Hmm.
So then she says to me, "Why don't you just go take some time and go sit on this land because you're
Mm.
Hawaiian."
Oof.
And I was like, first of all, I really struggled in all this. And for anyone listening to this, please have grace in understanding that this was quite an experience for me. But I really kind of was constantly in this place of I don't want to do anything that disrespects God,
Right.
right? Jesus
Right.
Christ, my Savior.
Right.
At the same time, how do I also don't want to ignore where I've come from. Like,
Right.
heritage is important. And
Right.
so I was constantly in these moments of, okay, what do I do right? Like, what do I do here? And when she said that, my first thought is, I don't know that I need to do that. I didn't say that. That's what I'm thinking. And then my very next thought is, Beth, when are you ever going to have an opportunity to do this again? To just go sit on this land. Just because you're going out there and you're sitting doesn't mean in any way you're disrespecting, right? God. And so she said, I'll tell your family. She goes, I'll let them know and I'll take you back. You're fine. Just go.
Wow.
So I turned and go back over these rocks and, whatever. And I'm trying to, find a place. I got to where they had the healing pool. I told you have a healing pool and
Yes.
it didn't have any water in it anymore, but you could clearly see
Mhm.
the pool, right? And
Mhm.
it's lined with lava rock. And right beside it was a fallen tree. And this is really wild jungly. Like there's
Mhm.
nothing
Mhm.
clean. I mean, anyway, it was very wild. And I just sat down and I spent time praying and I spent time
Mm.
just contemplating about my ancestors being there, right? And
Mhm.
in this very spot.
Mhm.
Um, and anyway, it was a really beautiful time for me personally. And then I turn around when I got done, I turn around and I start to walk back and right where you kind of come out of the woods to go back to where the cars were, or the woods is not the correct
Yes.
term, but anyway, the jungle.
This is the
Um,
only way we'll understand it.
yes. There were 3 young girls there, and they are family members. They are about my daughter's age, so young mothers,
Okay.
young girls. And Cheryl was not there, because she had gone back to let my family know that I was having a moment. And I assumed once I approached the girls, we were gonna turn and walk back to the cars, right? But when we get there, they ask me what that experience was like for me. Hasn't this been wonderful? Then they talked more
Mhm.
about kind of the legal things that are going on with the land. But then one of the girls women who actually has a degree in Hawaiian studies, and this is part of her calling and passion in life is to kind of educate
Mhm.
um, on the Hawaiian culture. She starts telling me more about this menstruating house.
Mhm.
Kim. So Hawaiians will say that women, like, they're really to be honored because they are the ones that birth a nation.
Mhm.
And there is a real honoring of the I don't know of a better term, but to say the power that a woman has in her ability to procreate, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when she's on her period and she's more emotional and she's got all this stuff going on, this is a really beautiful and powerful and strong time for her
Mhm.
to sit in even the pain and the emotions and whatever. So she goes to this menstruating house. Other women join her. They're
Mm.
not allowed to talk about anything negative, but just to sit together. They are just to be there, to be with, to come alongside, to just support, but just be there and allow her this time of growth and honoring. The men feed the women while they're there.
Wow.
They bring the food to them and feed them.
Wow.
I just I was like, okay, just think about that from a practical standpoint. This is like a week off every month.
Oh, can you imagine?
for just growth and whatever. So anyway, then Cheryl comes back. She has water for me, and she asked how I was doing, and I just thanked her, so much for
Mm.
that opportunity and for all that she had been teaching me and this kind of thing. And then she says to the girls, "I think we need to blah 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 blah." I don't know what that means. And then she says, "Just go and sit for a while." Well, here are these girls, these young girls who are so passionate about, our Hawaiian heritage,
Right.
had been telling me about the importance of just sitting with, and now they're offering to just go and sit with me.
It
And
Yeah,
initially, my first reaction is, I don't really need that again. But then it was like, again, no, just,
just do
go
it.
and take this
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
Kim, it was so beautiful. We went much deeper into the property and found a spot and just sat down really on little rocks that were on the jungle. I mean, on the, on the ground, on the floor, in the um under the trees. And we just sat there and sat quietly. And
Mm,
it was just I just, for me, it was about soaking in the beauty of the place. Um
mm,
Understanding that these young women and my family
mm,
was embracing me, even though I was really a complete stranger, that I was being welcomed into the family
mm,
fully, even though I was, some might say, just have drips of it in my blood.
mhm, mhm,
And anyway, it was really a powerful experience. As we were leaving there, at one point, Cheryl, she looks down and she says, "And you did all of this in your slippers," meaning my flip-flops. Mind you, all of them just had their flip-flops on too.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I said, "I have my whole life, ever since I was a little girl, I prefer to be barefoot. That's my favorite way to be. But
mhm,
if I have to wear shoes, flip-flops, and of course in the winter, that's different. But when I can,
mhm.
I love to be barefoot or with flip-flops." And she turned to me and she says, "You need to just tell people it's," and then she says this in Hawaiian, which means, and I can't say it, but which means, "It's because you're Hawaiian. It's because you're Hawaiian. It's because you're
Mm.
Hawaiian."
Wow.
So anyway, so when I got back to the hotel, I told Chris, I said, "Oh, babe," I said, "I am a Hawaiian girl now." Like, and
Yeah.
I'm not just, I mean, I am a native Hawaiian. And yeah, and that, it's really been a beautiful thing. The very next day we were able to go, and it's a really long story. I'll share you a lot of it, but just with beautiful circumstances, we were able to go and find, not only the town that my grandfather was born in and lived and raised in, but also the exact house that my
Oh, that's the
grandfather was born in,
coolest.
and that my great grandmother died in. My great grandmother's grave, my great grandfather's grave, my great great grandfather's grave, um, and just being in the very same place, the
Mm,
knowing when I'm standing in the yard that the view is of the ocean is what my grandfather saw when he was
mhm.
growing up. There was a creek there. We have him talking about, playing in that creek, and we were, I have video of that creek, and which is just stunning with the lots of beautiful foliage all around it. And just being there in that land, it was really, really a beautiful thing, and a beautiful experience. So, yeah,
So
yeah, go ahead. Oh, no, Kim.
Oh, he just died.
Hey, I'm hearing you again, so give it a
Okay,
second.
I know we went round and round in circles there for a second. Are you there?
You're here now.
Okay,
Last
good.
I heard, you started to ask me a question and then you froze. So,
And this is real life, so people
yep.
get to hear us live. What is the difference between a German woman
Mm.
and a Hawaiian? Like, what do you see? So when you look in the mirror, and before you left on vacation, you saw this German woman, and
Mhm.
now you look in the mirror and you see a Hawaiian.
Mhm.
What's the difference?
Oh, there are lots of parts of me that I have now been able to sort of understand where it comes from. Uh, there's something called, they often talk about, like, the aloha spirit and just being, like, there is just a real joyfulness about, Native Hawaiians, um, and that
They
is
do
just
celebrate, don't they? Really, there's a lot of celebration in that culture.
yeah, and just joy,
Mm,
just genuine joy,
mm.
um, and the joy is celebrated, like the fact that they don't allow you to say anything negative when you're sitting there in the menstruating house with one another, right? Because they really value, um, being positive and being joyful, and then also and that there's strength in that, and they also, when you make lays, you're not when you're everyone's sitting around. They taught us how to make lays. We had a whole lay making day, and it was so much fun, and we were taught how to gather the flowers. As Native Hawaiians, we have gathering rights, so we get to gather wherever.
Oh, wow.
Um, but they teach you how to gather, right? Like,
Fun.
that's part of it is you need to because you're Native Hawaiian, you need to understand how to do this and do it right and do
Mhm,
it
mhm,
properly
mhm.
to respect the plant and all that. And so they taught us how to do that. They taught us how to make the lays, tea lays and flower lays and anyway, and so we're all sitting around these long tables right by the ocean, the most beautiful setting you could ever imagine. And we're making these lays and that also in those settings, those conversations are always supposed to be uplifting and positive and
Mm,
joyful. Um, and anyway, so in fact, one of Chris's coworkers, they went to Hawaii just a couple years ago, and when she found out that I was Hawaiian, she said, "That just makes so much sense." She was like
wow.
she's like, Beth has a Hawaiian face." Um, and, I don't have the coloring. Does that make
Right.
sense? And I'm not
Yeah.
saying I look just like them. I don't necessarily at all, but there is sort of a joyfulness that I've always, uh, at the very least, always wanted to have,
Mhm.
and have and, yeah. I
So
felt very much at home with the personalities that were around me.
is there I'm trying to figure out how to make my question. Um, is in the past, has there been shame attached to that way of being?
Yes, because it's considered too Pollyanna or not
Okay.
willing to face, the difficult things, and it's not that, I'm working on that, right? That is definitely something that I have to be willing to do. But listen, to be joyful and all of that, to think of that part of that is really very much genetic, and
Mm,
cultural, and part of anyway, I don't know. I've just been that has been fun for me. Little things like the barefoot thing. I mean, I can't tell you my whole life I've been teased about that. I used to when we did care this is one of the ones that stands out the most in my adult life is I was doing Caring for Marriage for Mike and Lynn Ortell, and it was in December, and I was creating all the floral arrangements that we filled their house with these floral arrangements, and so I would bring all the flowers into the garage, and I'm in
mm,
an unheated garage creating these floral arrangements all
mhm,
day long, and I'm barefoot
mhm,
because I prefer to be when I paint,
mm,
I climb up and down ladders barefoot because I feel more stable being barefoot and than
mhm,
with shoes on. And so, yeah, that's and they just kept laughing about that. That's because I'm Hawaiian. And so yeah, there were there were things about me that are very it's been fun to see how that's connected to my heritage.
mhm,
But
mhm,
I will say there is the interesting component that I'm just trying to dive into is, the history of the United States and the Hawaiian Islands is really quite grotesque. I mean,
Mm.
we took the Hawaiian Islands without
Mhm.
by force, and they were a sovereign nation that was acknowledged by the world. And um we at gunpoint
Mm.
took the Hawaiian nation. Um, and right now what's happening in Hawaii is it's still continuing in that land is taken, um, you know, just gentrification to the point that people are unable to live there. Uh, there I heard a girl the other day say that her grandmother's house, she bought it 49 years ago. Her grandmother bought the house 49 years ago.
Mhm.
She bought it for $25,000. It's now worth, according to Zillow, 1.8 million. In that
What?
in that same time, the medium income has only gone up $10,000 a year. So think about that from the standpoint. I mean, initially you think, oh well, then she just needs to sell. She'll have a lot of money. But the point is, it's a $25,000 house that
Right.
you can't rebuy that. And you can't, for people coming up and native Hawaiians that are just, you know, um, trying to make a living, it's getting harder and harder for them to live on their land. And so and there's a um I'm not going to get the numbers right, but I'll just say it this way. The animals and plant life that is going extinct is almost all of it. If you look at the United States of America, the vast majority, I'll put it that way. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's very high. Like 80 something percent of those
Mhm.
are species that were unique to the Hawaiian Islands.
Mm.
And so, we have not done well in taking care of the land. And when I say we, I'm talking about the United States of America, like
Mhm.
colonization.
Mhm.
Um, it's been interesting to sort of digest the idea that so much of the harm that has been brought to the Hawaiian Islands under the came via the hand of missionaries. So, that's as a Christian woman who grew up as a missionary's daughter,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's
Mm.
been in
Mhm.
that's been interesting to, um, digest and kind of try to wrap my head around. Um, and anyway, so it's it's really like to to say that it has impacted me is a incredibly gross understatement. Like, it's
Mhm.
just I don't I don't feel the same per se.
Yeah.
And in many ways, uh, I mean, I guess in every way, I would have to say I feel much richer, and um, I'm very thankful.
Mm.
Thankful to have had this opportunity. I can't wait to take my children there.
Mm.
Um, uh, I'm trying to figure out how do I it's kind of like when you learn things about yourself or about who you are, you can't unlearn it, which means now you have a responsibility,
Right.
and trying to figure out, okay, so as a woman who lives in Asheville, North Carolina, um, what is my role?
Mm.
How do I honor m my heritage, and how do I support my family? Um, like, what can I do today and, right here? And I don't know that I have the answers to that. I mean, how do I be Kanaka?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and anyway, so it's just like I can't. And I told Chris there's so much of it that I'm really having a hard time letting go. He finally said to me, he says, "Wow, do I need to just start looking for a job on the Hawaiian Islands?" I'm like, "No, because my grandchildren are here, and
Yeah.
family is so important, and so there's no way, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but just trying to figure out like how to, you know,
How to incorporate that into
yeah,
your new
me,
way of being, yeah,
hmm
so that your
yeah,
external,
hmm
mirrors your
So,
internal.
like I have my lays on
Yeah.
this morning. One of these lays my mother gave me when we were there, and it was
Mm.
actually my great grandmother's.
Oh, wow.
And so that's super special to me. And the other one is one that I purchased, but I found it at a place where like it's handmade by locals. Do you know? Because a lot
Mhm.
of times the lays are, they're
Right,
imported
right,
from
right.
another island because they're cheap. But no, this was, handmade there on the island. And so, um, but yeah, how to incorporate um my Hawaiian heritage into my
Mhm,
current life is
mhm,
really consuming my mind right now.
mhm. I bet, I bet.
Um, but with
But you
such joy. I feel so thankful, so thankful.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so thankful about the things I've learned about me, um, and about that. You talked about when we opened here, today. You were talking about how that there's no place more beautiful on earth.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and we've been to several different tropical islands that are beautiful. I mean, Bermuda is gorgeous, St. Thomas. Um, uh, there are lots of beautiful islands you can go to, and I've been to several, not
mhm.
many, but I've been to several. And I would say if I was just trying to find a beautiful island, there's lots that take a lot less time to get to. That are also beautiful, right? Have beautiful
Mhm,
water.
mhm.
Um, Beautiful things about them, but Kim, there's just something about being there. I can't there's just something, the fragrance in the air, I don't know, there's just something about being there, and I kept telling Chris, "This is the weirdest thing ever," because I can't say, "I feel like I'm coming home," because I'd never been there before. Like, this is my first time ever, and, I mean, I guess technically my mom
But
was
what it
born.
but here wait. Okay. What is coming home? And I'm gonna sound some people may not like what I say, and tough. Coming home is when you come to yourself. I
Yeah.
mean, uh, I could get all yes, coming home to God, da, 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 da. Yes.
But that is part of that, though.
But really, yes, coming
Yeah, it's
home
very big.
is when you're connected to who you are.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that you going to Hawaii and
Mhm.
learning all of these things and seeing how that really has been a part of who you are all the time.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
So of course it's coming home.
Yeah.
It's less to do with actual place and more to do w- with you internally and
Right.
and how that place interacts with you.
Yes. But it is how the place interacts with me because it's very
Yes,
much,
exactly.
they're ugh. I
Exactly.
when
Exactly.
I'm sitting there next to that healing pool, right? What they
Yes.
call the healing pool. And, it's this green all around me and lava rock, and I can hear the ocean. I can't I'm literally feet from the ocean, but it's so
Right.
thick with undercover, right, that I
Uh-huh.
can't see it per se, but
Uh-huh.
I can
Uh-huh.
hear it. And just the smell and the sound and the temperature and the sights, the green and the lushness, and I felt deep in it. Um I wish I had thought to I'll try to put a link to a piece of art on here, but
Mhm.
I that afternoon, Chris and I just went looking at some shops, and there's a Hawaiian, an artist from the island of Oahu who has become quite famous. She does a lot of
Mm,
illustration, and it's kind of
mm,
modern contemporary art.
mhm,
Um, but there is a piece that she does, which is just as soon as I saw it, I teared up because
mm,
it's it just reminded me of exactly where I had come from.
mm,
But it shows a female with lots of hair, which I definitely have lots of Hawaiian hair. That is one thing I just got it cut, so today it doesn't look like
yeah,
it,
you
but
do not have German hair, that's for sure. I have
no.
the German hair.
Yes. And, so this woman has lots of hair, and she's just just in green, and
Mm,
with the large leaves all around her, and anyway, and it just reminded me of that. So, it is connected to, yes, it's about me kind of,
mhm. It's the interaction between you and that place
yeah.
and how it, brings forth your whole self.
Mhm. So I told you I can't stop thinking about it. So, like, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm,
Yes,
like,
of
I
course.
just trying to better understand, and, some of the things I found, which I just love, is that, like, one of the cultural things is that they like to go to when you go to someone's house, you take something that is either living or life-giving. So, like,
Mm,
fresh fruit or a plant, because fruit is life-giving because you eat it. Do you know what I'm saying? And it gives life. Um,
yeah.
or a plant. Anyway, and so they're talking about that, and I just like, I love that. I told Chris,
Mhm,
I said,
mhm,
"Forever now, I will always show up with
mhm.
fruit or a plant," and I don't need to tell people why, but that's good.
You're just gonna do it.
That's just gonna be what it
100%.
is. And so, but anyway, I'm listening to this podcast, and at one point, he asks all of his guests who are very much native Hawaiian, like, most of them raised there and in families that are, experiencing the Hawaiian culture, and cetera, et cetera. And but he asked them the question, when did you know for sure that you were Kanaka? Or, you
Mm,
know, basically, when did sort of the understanding of your
mhm, mhm.
the cultural significance kind of hit you? And, like, the second I heard that, I teared up, and I was like, "I can tell you
Mm,
exactly when I knew,"
mm,
like, and I didn't even know how to say that, like, I didn't know that's what it was, but as
mm.
soon as he asked that question, I thought, "Oh, I know, I
So
know."
was it there? The
Yeah,
experience you just told us? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
on that land,
Yeah.
in the woods by myself.
Yeah.
Thinking about
Yeah.
I think because there was something about being there on that land, in that place, and when I talk about my ancestors, this is going back to even, like, 1500, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
this
Yeah.
is going back,
Yeah.
and so, you know, and just thinking about, uh, yeah, that part of me comes from there
Yeah. Yeah.
was quite something.
Yeah, we can't there's a couple I've got 3 thoughts.
Yeah, thanks.
One one is, heritage matters to God,
Mhm. Or there wouldn't be numbers.
or there wouldn't be exactly,
The
and
book.
when you look at it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's the
Mhm,
and
mhm.
Jesus's genealogy. That all matters. That
Yes.
all matters to God.
Mhm.
Secondly, I wonder, and maybe I'll ask God when we get there, um, the menstrual house and how in biblical times women are unclean. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's the only way God could get men to leave women alone so that we could rest when we're having our periods. And wouldn't that be like God? Wouldn't it be just like God to say, I'm going to tell these men that women are unclean and they can't touch them and to leave them alone, and they can't even make food? Isn't it could women weren't even allowed to cook when they were having their periods? Were they?
Yeah.
Because they were unclean and anything
Right.
they touched was unclean and anything So maybe that was God's way of giving us a break
I
because
just
in that culture, women were worked and worked and worked and worked and worked.
I just
Women.
also wonder if it wasn't just man's misinterpretation
Well,
or
yes.
way of
Yes.
saying it. Like
Right.
like
Right.
this is
Sure.
like the to set apart, to take that time to, you know what I'm saying? To not anyway. Anyway, whatever. And I'm not listen, I I understand that this I hope that people aren't terrified by what I've said or, what I'm experiencing, but I'm telling you, when I was sitting there by that healing pool and praying, the thought about the book of Numbers came to mind and
Mhm.
Jesus' genealogy and exactly what you
Mhm.
said. And I
Mhm.
can't tell you, it was so emotional for me because I felt like in that moment, God himself just letting me know, Beth, this is my gift. Like, right? Like, I'm
Mhm.
gifting you with this time to get
Mhm.
to know this other part of you, this other part
Mhm.
of your ancestors. And I believe there's a reason. Like there's, it's been important for me to learn even if it's just something to learn about myself or a way of sharing it with my grandchildren, a way of being. Um
I don't think I read the book by Susan Cain. It's her newest book called Bittersweet. And there's a couple of chapters in there where she talks about her about basically tags on scientifically tags on our DNA
hmm,
that is passed down generation after generation after
mhm,
generation. Like
mhm,
there is actual scientific evidence of the children of the people from the Holocaust that have
right,
their own trauma, and it's a DNA tag. It's not that they are experiencing the trauma of their it's a it's a
right,
DNA tag.
right.
And I think that matters. I mean,
Yeah,
scripture says the sins of the father will go to the third and fourth generation and their faithfulness to 1,000 generations.
right,
I
right.
don't think that's just something in the
It's not
air.
it's not just poetic.
It's not, and it's not, I think it's something that's in our
Yeah.
literal bodies that
Mhm,
we carry. Yes, the sins of the father for third and fourth generations. Yes, if we look at trauma, 100%. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to keep going.
mhm,
And I also see the faithfulness.
mhm.
And we cannot deny the stories of those who've gone before us, because the stories of those who've gone before us are part of our story that we emerged from. It's the setting from which we
Yeah,
hatched,
yeah.
and that matters.
Mhm,
It matters deeply, whether
mhm.
it's the way the Hawaiians are and the importance of their ancestry, and that's still important. It doesn't They're not your gods. They're not
Yeah,
your gods, but they're part of your story and part of who you are
yeah,
by what they experienced. You that's not going to That is a part of you. And even
yeah,
science is showing that it's a part of you. It tags onto your DNA.
yeah. Well, I definitely feel that,
Yeah,
and, yeah.
for sure.
So, there you go. That was, my vacation. Well, and then on top of that, I mean, we had this glorious time, and getting to see my great-grandmother's grave was really powerful for
That's
me,
neat.
um,
Mhm.
and but then Chris and I, after the family reunion, we went and celebrated our anniversary. We went to the
Mm.
island of Oahu. We went out to the North Shore and just, did snorkeling and, um, just spent time together. And it was, boy, talk about, I'm so thankful for that time because it the other time was beautiful and intense, you know what I'm
Mhm,
and so
mhm,
that was really lovely to be able
mhm,
to just kind of still on the islands, kind of
mm, mhm,
just relax and enjoy
mhm.
and soak it in, and then, and then on the way back, I stopped in Phoenix. Chris came on back. I was in Phoenix for a week, and then I spoke for Lynn Artell out there at a women's event, and so I had a week kind of to myself, and that was really good too.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was just, I mean, really transformative 3 weeks,
That's
and
really neat.
I don't. Uh, I feel like a much more genuine,
Mm.
uh, form of myself.
Mm.
So, and it's not discrediting the German, right? I mean, in fact,
Sure.
so I told you this is my great-great-grandmother, her
Mhm.
descendants.
Mhm.
She was full native Hawaiian. She
Mhm.
married a German man by the name of Mueller. So this is the Mueller heritage, Mueller family reunion. And then my great grandmother was half German, half native Hawaiian. She married a man who was half native Hawaiian and half Scottish,
Oh, fascinating.
and they had my grandfather. So, we are, I mean, I am a
So, yeah, 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 yeah,
mix
yeah.
of a lot of
It's
things,
all there, yeah.
but I think this part was no more significant to me than kind of interesting that I am native Hawaiian, right? That I have that
Mhm.
blood in me,
Mhm.
but never felt much more connected than that, and
Mm.
I do now.
That's so
So I'm
neat.
very thankful for that. So
I'm so glad for you. What a great what a what a great thing. And
so if
I
I just
I
rock the
remember.
chalets occasionally, people, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah, you
jewelry,
rock
it's
'em.
a
You need to
chalet.
wear them to the retreat when we when we have our retreat in October.
Yes, and if I told Chris, I said, "What are you gonna do when I start just sticking a flower in my ear, like on my ear and
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
randomly doing all these things?" He's like, "Go for
Just
it.
do
Just
it.
go for it.
Just
Be
do
it.
it.
Be it."
Oh, wow. Well, that's
So,
great. Probably what you did not expect.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Way more than I expected. I always told people, "I wanna go to Hawaii, I wanna go to Hawaii."
Sure.
And it was always then I would say, "Because I want to know my family." That has always been the most
Mm.
important part to me. I just didn't understand how it would impact me personally.
Mm.
I expected it to be kind of interesting to get to know my family,
Mm.
but I
Mm.
didn't think I would feel so much a part of it, a part of the
Mhm.
land, a part of the
Mhm.
family, a part of the culture
Mm.
and all of it. And so, yeah, it just shocked me.
It's fast. You just see again this Susan Cain book. She says our longing can lead us to belonging.
Mm,
And you just
yes.
said it. The longing to go to
Yeah.
Hawaii
Since I was a
actually
little girl.
created this
Yeah.
sense of belonging
Mhm.
more than you actually expected it
Than
to
I
be.
ever expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, than I ever expected.
So
And
we need to listen to our longings
ooh,
because they will bring us to a place of belonging.
I believe God puts those in our hearts.
100%.
Like, it was as
100%.
clear as day when I was sitting there that there is a purpose for this, right? There is a
Mhm.
reason for me to be here. There's a reason for
Mhm.
me to be experiencing this and learning this and knowing more about, who I am ultimately
Mhm.
because of,
Mhm.
that. And anyway, yeah, it's fascinating to me, just
Mm.
fascinating. And I kept thinking of you too. Because I I I I'm ready to go back. And I told Chris, "How do I mean, what on earth?" And then it dawned on me. I was thinking about you, and I was like, "Well, she goes for a month every summer." I need to go I'm ready to go for a month or 2 every summer
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Hawaii. I'm just ready to go. Like, I'm
of
ready to
course.
for that to be the thing I do. But, anyway, so then I called up my brother who's, like, played around with the idea of moving there.
Oh,
And I
wow.
called him up and I said, "I have decided the trajectory of your life. You
Yes,
need to move to
you
Hawaii,
move and I go visit you.
and then I'll spend 2 months with you or something
Yes.
and just dive into the culture." And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So,
great. I love it.
anyway, if anyone that is listening to this, if you are, I mean, I'm sure it would be a miracle if it were to happen. But if anyone is listening to this and you are Native Hawaiian,
Please contact
message
us.
me,
Yes, for
please. I
sure.
am so. Oh, I'm going to this next week. Contact when we were at one of the restaurants. Last story. I'm sorry, we're going long. Forgive me, but we were at one of the restaurants and. Our waitress was saying, "Hey, where are you from?" Well, and we told her North Carolina. She goes, "Oh, my sister lives in North Carolina.
Oh.
Where do you live in North Carolina?" And we said, "Asheville." And she said, "My sister lives in Asheville."
Of course.
So she lives, and her parents just moved here, and she was talking about her sister wanting to start like some hula and things like that around here. So I, yeah, she gave me her number, and so I'm gonna try to
Good
contact
for
her. She's
you.
evidently a pastry chef in the area, so I
Ooh.
am super excited about trying to connect. But just yeah, if you hear this and you are in any way, shape, or form connected to the islands, let me know because we need to get together.
For sure.
Anyway, sorry to take so much time, Kim.
No. It was a great story. Thank you for sharing. And on that note, we probably need to let our listeners go.
Yes. Okay. So last
Because
24
it's been an hour. Oh yeah, this our question. It's been so long since we've done this. I forgot what our question
in the last 24 hours. What's something that's brought you joy, laughter, or a smile, Kim Cove?
Okay, very simple thing. Yesterday, no, it was Tim this morning. Tim looked at me and he's like, "Did you notice that last night we physically connected to each other a lot? Like we were either holding hands, my arm was on him, like literally over his chest.
Yeah.
Or he had his hand hooked over my forearm. And it just felt connected. And when I feel connected, it always brings me joy.
That's awesome.
How about you?
Since we've been back, I've become a grandmother for the third time.
Yay!
To a beautiful little girl, Charlotte
Yes!
Elizabeth. And yesterday I got a call from Becca and she said she needed to bring something by. I'm going today. As soon as I get done with this, we are headed to Chattanooga to celebrate our granddaughter Emma's first birthday.
Oh, wow. Already? Holy.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And
Wow.
so we're going to celebrate that. And anyway, Becca wanted to bring a gift to drop off because they can't go. And so I went downstairs to pick that up. And she goes and picks up little Charlotte out of her car seat. I didn't expect that, and comes walking over. And that girl is just stretched out. Like she's got the lankiest long limbs and fingers. And she just, because she's not. Anyway, she's just long and lanky. And so she just stretched out completely, just enjoying the sunshine and being in her mom's arms. And just seeing her was such a profound joy. It's yeah, it's been remarkable. So that was in the last 24 hours.
Cool.
In her little face. She's got lots of dark hair, so it's really she's a little beauty. So
that's neat.
Anyway, well, thank you all for listening. I don't know that I have any great closing words of wisdom, but yeah. I have nothing.
That's okay. We'll just say goodbye.
I would say take a vacation, but that's not really what this was about.
Yeah.
Dive into your heritage, maybe.
Really?
If that's what you feel inspired to do. But maybe just praise God for the joy.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of it out there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We would really love to hear from you. So please find us. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Joy in the Weeds. You can also email us. Our email address is joy@carolinasda.org. That's joy@carolinasda.org. Now, we hope that today, as you navigate the weeds, you will also hold on to moments of joy. This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.